Hi there. My name's Charles Porlier, and I was the makeup effects artist on Jumanji, and I'm happy to be here.
My name is David Szehi, and I've lived in this region since 1989. I went to school at Franklin Pierce College, and then shortly followed by Keene State College.
My name is Madeline Murphy. I've been in the Keene community since about 1992. Raised my daughter up here and really enjoy Keene. Keene is home.
My name's Rick MacMillan. I've lived here for 35 years or plus. I moved up in 1993.
My name is Susan Lord, and I've lived in the Monadnock region since 1976.
And that's my connection to Jumanji.
Is that you in that photograph right there?
Yep, I had a beard and hair down to my butt, but that was 30 years ago.
My role in the production of Jumanji was to be an extra, a pedestrian, I think was the wording.
I was fortunate enough to work on Jumanji both in the fall of '94 and the spring of 1995. In the fall, I was a location assistant, and in the spring, I was an office production assistant.
I heard that Jumanji might be filmed in Keene, and then when it became official, there was a newspaper clipping calling for extras. So on that day, I went to the Best Western with a lot of other people, got in line, filled out who I was. They took my picture.
You know, they will take your pictures, measurements, and basically the most important thing is you're alive and available for the dates that they need you.
And a few days later, they gave me a call and said, show up on this date in front of the courthouse and you'll be an extra.
Well, basically they just said anybody and everybody, just who's available for those days to do it. You have to be able to drop everything, and just the days always change, the times change, all the last minute. Usually you don't know until like the day before when they need you to be there at 6 a.m.
When Jumanji came to town, they were looking perhaps for people who could be part of the movie, and I jumped at the chance. So that's how I met Dow Griffith and was hired on as a production assistant. I worked to help find housing for Robin Williams, which, as it turned out, he didn't really need. He was going to be happy at the Best Western.
Yeah, I was finished with my haircut, and so I walked out, and there was a film crew readying a vehicle, a car, which was parked just off Central Square in the street, and they were setting up the shoot a scene that eventually found its way into the film.
In preparation for having the animals run through Central Square, so they had set up cars that were meant to implode as an animal would run on top of it, which that filming was added later.
The car was being set up for a scene that would superimpose the image of wild animals rampaging through Central Square.
Me and a group of other people and a student at Keene State that was in charge of us was letting us know what we should do and when. Our role was to run up from the courthouse up towards the gazebo and pretend as if elephants were chasing us.
And then they did the car, like where the elephant crushes the car. You know, we were all running by that, and the whole thing was hooked up with hydraulics to like implode on itself. That was pretty cool. So we basically, like most big budget movies where there's lots of, you know, extras running, screaming from unseen things, they're just like, yeah, just keep moving, don't look at the camera, and just do what you're told and just keep moving.
And I started talking to a woman that was sitting next to me on the pavement. Didn't realize that the associate director was talking to everyone, and she walked up to me with her bullhorn and she said, "I'm talking." So Embarrassingly, she walked back, and I was quiet, and we just continued back and forth all day.
It was very fun, although you have to remember there were no animals. They were added later. So if you were just watching it, it was a little confusing. And there was a lot of jubilation at the end of that day because they really felt they were doing something incredibly innovative.
There was probably over 200, maybe even 300. So it was pretty crowded. It took all day to film one 3-second segment, but I would run all the way up from Court Street to the gazebo and walk back, run up, walk back, sit down on the pavement while the directors were changing the camera angles. While filming, we got to meet Robin Williams, which was probably the best part of the experience. He was so sweet, and he took his time. He shook everyone's hand. He said hello to everyone. So I'd have to say that was my best memory.
As far as Robin Williams is concerned, he had a great time in Keene. He loved being in Keene. He loved interacting with everybody on the crew from Keene and in New Hampshire. He was also very much a person who was aware that as a big film unit coming into a small town, we had a big impact. And sometimes it's not always positive, you know. We close streets. We cause a great deal of inconvenience sometimes when we go into a small town as a large film unit. And he was aware that his partial responsibility was to put a positive face on everything because there's so much attention played towards him. He was always positive with people. He was always very much a people person and would do his best to leave Keene with a positive memory of the day that, you know, Jumanji came to town. So he worked that really hard.
My favorite exchange was with Robin Williams, even though I was warned not to interfere with his work or even talk to him. The first morning I saw him, I was so happy and excited. I raised my eyebrows up and down, and he returned my greeting. So that was sort of my favorite moment. Another scene was shot in Swansea at a cemetery when Robin visits his parents' grave. That was a very fun scene to watch because there were probably 4 or 5 takes of that, and each time it was shot, Robin had a different funny line. Robin wants to stop playing the game, and Kirsten sort of urges him, you can't, there's a lion. And he says, in this one script that I have, he says, well, I'm not in the lion business. So that was one take. And then they said, okay, let's shoot that again. And the next time, she's saying her line the same way. And he says, oh, lions and tigers and bears, oh my. And each time he would have a different response. We had to try to not laugh.
And he was dressed in a long wig and beard, and the only thing he was wearing was a green cloth, and it was in November, so I'm sure he was quite chilly.
We're there again, it was November, and it was dawn, and it was very, very cold. It was 15, 20 degrees out, and he's wearing a tunic, you know. And we're lucky enough wearing a sweater and pants and stuff, but so just that was my first time seeing like the suffering and the work that even the main stars go through, you know. And it's a lot of standing around waiting. 90% of it is waiting. So he was just jumping around trying to keep moving and get ready while the crew sets up all the equipment, and his assistant would bring over like a down coat, but then they'd have to take it off and put it back on and take it off, put it on. And yeah, he was jumping around, cursing, but laughing. I mean, he was cursing about how cold it was and how his privates were probably gonna freeze and fall off if he had to stay out there any longer.
Oh, it felt really always easygoing, fun. Robin made it very fun. And the people working together on the movie, there was a lot of camaraderie.
Robin was a very special person. He was somebody who was incredibly generous to all of those people around him. That's something that you'll hear from pretty much everybody. He was always concerned about people that worked with him, that everything was going well, both on set and off. He really cared about his crew. He cared about the people that he worked with.
And then they did a screening of the film in '95 when it came out, which was fun. We all got dressed up. They had a limousine in front of the theater, so we walked through it and came out of the limousine as if we were movie stars.
People wanted to get together to celebrate people who had been in the movie. It was very fun, I remember, to watch the movie together. People cheered and oohed and awed at different points during the movie as they watched.
I think it was maybe February. We were going through a blizzard. The house was packed, and I think the people in attendance were generally pretty buoyant about the chance to see a film made in their hometown.
You can see in the stampede scene, I'm the last pedestrian running towards the camera, and I'm wearing a green jacket with my hands up screaming. So yeah, you can see me in the film.
And now, it's 30 years later. I have a hard time wrapping my head around that, but I think it's pretty cool that they're trying to organize, or they are organizing, the 30th anniversary shindig, and reminding everybody, hey, don't forget, we had this cool part of the movie shot here. It doesn't happen every day. It doesn't happen every 30 years.
And of course, Keene plays Brantford. So when you see those animals running down Main Street and stepping on the cars and all of that stuff, that's all of the stuff that was in the commercials. That's all of the stuff that when a talk show was doing a piece on Jumanji coming out, and they showed a clip, 90% of what we shot in New Hampshire was shown as being the most exciting and enticing part of that movie. So the important thing about Keene was that all of the big visuals that set up the whole story, all of that stuff was shot in Keene. That's what's so wonderful about what was done in Keene, is that it's not just pieces of the film, it's some of the most important, visually exciting pieces of the entire film. And so that's what was great about shooting in Keene. And probably why there's such, reason 30 years later to really celebrate that. Because generations from now, people are going to be seeing Jumanji. It'll be an old movie, but they're going to watch it and they're going to see, Keene and Keene's Main Street as it was in 1994. And that's a really, really cool thing when you think about it from a historical and from a remembrance perspective.